Welcome to the Psychology World podcast. I'm Connor Whiteley, bringing you psychology news, articles, and other interesting psychology-related articles. Where I can find the podcast notes and more interesting psychology-related things, and you can get your free 8 psychology book box set at connorwhiteley.net. Now let's get on to the show.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 173 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, and today's episode is on what are the benefits of talking ill of the dead to trauma survivors. And it is Saturday the 1st of October 2022 as I record this. So today's episode is actually rather interesting because normally, because it's a social norm not to speak ill of the dead, lots of people would probably be thinking that speaking ill of the dead and basing a podcast episode on it is rather bad, rather unusual, and definitely not helpful. But it turns out that there is actually some research that actually contradicts this and says that it can be really helpful to a lot of people, and maybe this social norm is actually doing a lot more damage than good. So that's a brilliant podcast episode that I really enjoyed talking about and writing up. So you've got that in the content part of today's episode. And because, like I said last week, I'm actually not at home and I don't have access to my recording equipment, there's no psychology news section today and there's no personal updates because, so as always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So you can always email me, connorwhiteley.net. Leave a comment on the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast, and you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi-whiteley. I always love to hear from all of you because it really helps make the podcast feel more like a conversation. And you can always leave a comment on the Facebook post at Connor Whiteley, Psychology Author. And today's episode has been sponsored by Abnormal Psychology, the causes and treatments for depression, anxiety, and more. So, this is a very popular and a great book for people who want to deepen their understanding of what causes the depression from the biological, cognitive, and the social factors, and the wide range of anxiety conditions from generalized anxiety disorder, social phobias, and all the different other types of phobias, social anxiety disorder, and so many more great conditions. And we also talk about the different causes of that schizophrenia before going to talk about how they're treated. And even before that, we have to talk about stuff like classification, diagnosis, all of the biases that are involved in that. So this absolutely brilliant book does cover so much ground, and lots of people absolutely love it. So if you're looking for a great, really easy to understand book that covers a lot of breadth and depth within abnormal psychology, then definitely check it out. So there's Abnormal Psychology, the causes and treatments of depression, anxiety, and more, available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get the paperback and hardback version from Amazon, your local bookstore, or local library if you request it. And you can also buy it directly from me at payhip.com/ConnorWhiteley. But if you didn't want to buy a book, be still willing to give the podcast a bit of one-time support, then you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ConnorWhiteley. And what buying books and buying me coffees allows me to do is that it just helps to support the podcast, and it helps to cover my time in producing the show recording the content, editing it, uploading it, and writing out the blog post, because it all does take quite a while. So, but now that we've done that, let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So, but moving on to the content part of today's episode. So, we're going to be talking about what are the benefits of speaking ill of the dead for trauma survivors. And personally, I really do love these episodes that actually rally against social norms, and speaking ill of the dead definitely does. However, the social norm is understandable, but in today's episode, we're going to look at it from the inherent problems that causes trauma survivors, and how speaking ill of the dead might help them in their recovery. This is just such a brilliant episode that I really love. So, sort of as a mini introduction to the benefits, I actually just want to say this. So, there might actually be a benefit of speaking ill of the dead for people, and this could be especially true for trauma survivors. Since when offenders of a trauma die, survivors often face a wide range of very complex emotions, and this sets them off on an emotional journey where they need others to help them understand, support, and accept themselves and their own emotions. As well as in this case, the social norm of do not speak ill of the dead under any circumstances is very damaging, because it could make the social support network of the trauma survivor get uncomfortable listening to them speak ill of the dead, and they may be ill equipped to support the trauma survivor, resulting in them even being attempted to challenge, silence, or minimize what the survivor experienced, all because of some social norm. Personally, I flat out do not blame anyone for feeling uncomfortable about speaking ill of the dead, because I experience it too. For example, if someone speaks ill about my grandmother on my dad's side, then yes, I get uncomfortable. And to be honest, and now I feel almost a bit guilty about it. I don't really want to listen to it, but I guess that just shows how ingrained this is in all of us. But there are problems with this, and I will fully admit that if my grandmother was abusive or wronged other people, then I might be tempted to silence her life on the matter, but she wasn't. Flat out know that. I'm just using it as an example. She was a great woman, and that I'm saying honestly. But the point of this podcast episode that is to help raise awareness of this and learn how to improve myself at the same time. In that case, I do actually have a loved one or know someone who was good to me but abusive to others. Supporting the survivors' grieving process. Whenever an offender dies, trauma survivors can experience a wide range of disturbing and conflicting emotions throughout their grieving process. They might be angry and devastated about the death. They might be happy and relieved, or they might be overwhelmed. And always, everyone is completely entitled to feel how they want to feel. Like I know when certain people pass in my family, none of my immediate family will be upset. And it doesn't make us bad people, it is just the response we will have because of what those certain people did. Therefore, to aid in the grieving process, survivors might benefit from sharing their feelings, thoughts and experiences about the dead offender or offenders. So some survivors might speak ill of the dead as part of the grieving process, whilst others might not. At the end of the day, there is no right or wrong way to grieve. And the worst thing any of us can do, me included, is to try and force someone to grieve in a certain way. Additionally, trauma survivors do need to be selective and at least intentional about who they allow to support them during this difficult time, even more so if they do end up speaking ill of the dead. For example, it is unofficially best to talk to a non-judgmental best friend, pet family member who thought the offender of the trauma could do no wrong. In addition, there are a lot of reasons why people won't be able to support trauma survivors, and they might even be intolerant towards the survivor. Some of these reasons include they might be grieving themselves for the offender, and they might perceive them differently to the survivor. Therefore, as an unofficial tip here, it is best to seek out a friend or family member who either didn't know the deceased offender or someone who is capable of distancing themselves from their own personal thoughts, feelings and experiences of the offender to help support the grieving process of the survivor. Connecting this to intergenerational trauma. When it comes to trauma, there are many different types, including intergenerational trauma. This is a type of trauma that consists of a response that has been passed down from one or more persons to another. Normally, this is done within the same family or a shared community. Intergenerational trauma can begin with an event that impacts one person in a family or the number of events impacting multiple different people in the same family, or traumatic events that impact a particular community, be it a cultural, sexual, national, ethnic, racial, religious, or another type of the group entirely. Therefore, survivors of this intergenerational trauma, be it different generations of a family, starting and continuing a cycle of physical abuse, or another type of the trauma, may need to speak ill of the dead so that they can acknowledge what happened to them and process the impact of this generational trauma. And to connecting this to a wider point about death, how we all talk about the dead, so but we can tell by their stories as well as gain and learn enough to form our own understanding about them. As a result, survivors could need to speak ill of the dead to gain a similar understanding and accept the impact, and most importantly, help themselves heal. Also, it is this understanding and accepting of the trauma that could be critical to avoid them passing on the trauma to future generations. Speaking ill of the dead and breaking cycles. While cycles of abuse isn't something we've ever focused on the podcast, something that I've actually got to fix at some point, we do really need to talk about it here. Due to trauma survivors are vulnerable to unknowingly repeating their experiences and trauma, so that victimize others, just like how they were victimized themselves. This, as a result, creates a cycle of abuse, and sometimes survivors engage in self-sabotaging behaviours, such as if a father was abused as a child repeatedly for years, then he might abuse his children, or he might avoid having children altogether. And like I have mentioned on previous podcast episodes, this can happen to anyone, and mothers that can be abusive too. As a result, in order to break this cycle of abuse, the survivors of the trauma may very well need to talk ill of the dead. They might need to say something along the lines of, "He was a terrible father, and I will never harm my children like he did," or "I will never turn in to my abuser." These sort of verbalizations that can help people foster not only an awareness of their own personal thoughts and feelings, but they help give the survivor a sense of accountability to help them break or avoid the cycles of abuse and trauma. Conclusion. I know today's mental health themed podcast episode was very different. I will be rather surprised if it didn't trigger anyone because of the social norms of not speaking ill of the dead is so ingrained in our society. However, as psychology students and psychology professionals, we know the damage that other social norms, societal benefits, and other societal constructs can have on people's mental health and healing processes. Therefore, it is very possible that this social norm about the dead needs to be added to that list. Because I have mentioned time and time again, and I always will, as a current or future psychologist, it is an unofficial mandate to help people decrease the psychological distress and improve their lives. And if speaking ill of the dead helps them to do that, then it is something we absolutely have to consider. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that you got something out of it. I know that I did, and to be honest, this has been such a great episode for me though, so I really did enjoy it. If you know someone who would enjoy today's episode, then please help share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. And definitely check out Normal Psychology, the causes and treatments of depression, anxiety and more, 3rd edition. Available in all of the usual places. So have a great day everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.